Idaho Matters is one way to learn about the people, the places, and the things that make Idaho unique. From the geography, the flora and the fauna, to the culture and arts of this place that we call home. Subscribe and listen to Idaho Matters today at boisestatepublicradio.org/podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. More Idaho Matters now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudette. The Boise State Broncos are on an impressive roll as they get set to host the Mountain West Conference Championship game tomorrow evening at Albertson Stadium. Now, the number 10 Broncos are taking on number 19 UNLV Rebels, and there is a lot on the line with this game tomorrow. So who's best to break it down for us? Well, of course, KTVB Sports Director Jay Tust. He's joining us once again. Jay, it is always so great to have you on the show.
Good to be back. And it's only, arguably one of the biggest weeks in Boise State football history. I know that they've had a lot of success, and it feels weird to say that, but it's absolutely the truth.
I mean, seriously, Jay, so can we talk about the ranking itself? Because the Broncos haven't been this high in the polls since Chris Peterson was head coach. So we're going back, 12, 13 years?
Yeah, a completely different era. Yeah, Kellen Moore was still slinging passes for the Boise State Broncos the last time. They were ranked this high. They've been to a Fiesta Bowl in 2014, so they certainly played in big bowl games since then. But in terms of the rankings, this is the highest they've climbed since, arguably, not even arguably, since what was the most dominant era in Boise State football history when Chris Peterson and Kellen Moore were still here.
And I think, Jay, it's fair to note that the UNLV Rebels, they have had a really historic season, right? So this is, they've never been ranked this high.
Yeah, this is kind of a foreign success, if you will, to this UNLV football team. So they were good, though. They are a really good team. Their head coach, Barry Odom, has done a phenomenal job. They played Boise State really tough earlier this year. The Broncos pulled out a hard-fought 29-25 road victory down in Las Vegas. And so Boise State's going to get a good challenge tomorrow. There's no doubt in my mind. But I also think they're going to be ready. They're getting a little healthier. They've been banged up, talking about the Broncos, that is. And so I like their chances to have a really good showing tomorrow on the blue for sure. So
talk to us how important this game is for the Broncos tomorrow.
It is. Like I said, off the top, this is one of the biggest weeks in Boise State football history. And I know when you look at the history of this program, many of you might question that, but a college football playoff berth is at stake right now. And despite the fact Boise State is ranked 10th and they're 11-1 and they're having this phenomenal season, if they don't beat UNLV, all of that comes crashing down. And so if UNLV were to win, and this is their motivation, they likely slide into the college football playoff with the late season push. And so we're talking millions and millions of dollars. In terms of the eyes that will be, watching Boise State in the college football playoff compared to just their normal bowl game, vastly different. So if Boise State can win tomorrow, I mean, it becomes a dream season. And then on top of that, tomorrow's the Mountain West Championship game. Sunday is the college football playoff bracket reveal. And then on Monday, we learn if Ashton Jeanty is a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. I mean, there's so much going on this week. When I say it's one of the biggest weeks in Boise State football history, it's valid. I mean, it's absolutely the truth. And so it should be a fun next few days for sure.
Okay, so Jay, I mean, you just describing that, I'm getting nerves. I mean, I'm literally getting anxious. And trust me, you don't want me anywhere near a football field. With that said, not only do you follow the team closely, these players, Coach Danielson. What are they doing to just have that mental focus that they need? I mean, because it's not just about the physical part of it, right? I mean, you have got to stay in a certain headspace.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of this. And it's one thing that Spencer Danielson really thrives in. It's funny, and we joke around it because he always talks about how the next game is the most important one because it's the next game. And it's just it's this cliche that we kind of roll our eyes at, in all honesty, but this team is bought into it. And even they joke around about how much he says it. but it's allowed them to stay uber focused all year long, and it's worked. They're 11-1, and I think that Spencer Danielson knows how to motivate this team. He spends a lot of time on the messaging that he's going to present to his team. And one thing he does is he really leans on Chris Peterson for that messaging. Every Sunday, they sit down over Zoom for about an hour and they talk. And
Really?
Spencer loves that time that he gets with Chris Peterson every Sunday. I'm like this, like I'm telling you, this is like part of the routine. And so he takes, that advice from Chris Peterson, molds it with his own, message, character, how he wants to build Boise State up, and then he presents that to his team. And if you want to ask if it's effective or not, again, they're 11-1, ranked 10th in the country. It seems pretty effective to me. So
Yeah.
I think that there's so much about this game. Another thing too is that Boise State hasn't won a Mountain West Conference championship on the blue since 2019. For a program
Really?
that's used to winning conference championships, that's been, it feels like it's been a while, right? There are not very many people on the roster right now at Boise State that have won a Mountain West Conference championship game on the blue, and that certainly motivates them. They have also never won back-to-back Mountain West Conference championships. They won it last year. Spencer Danielson came in as the interim head coach. They finished the season strong. They have a chance to go back-to-back for the first time ever. So there are some things that are definitely motivating these players and this coaching staff right now.
So let's talk Ashton Jeanty. I mean, we've talked about him before with you, Jay, and not only is he just, a phenomenal athlete, but just anecdotally, I've heard story after story about this young man and what just a kind, solid individual he is. And I know there are other players on the team, but we both know that when you get this type of recognition, and he's getting national recognition, the weight of the world can be resting on your shoulders, or at least feeling that way.
You're absolutely right on that. And I'm telling you, from the first time I met Ashton until when I saw him, 2 days ago inside the Boise State football facility, he feels like he carries himself as the same person. He hasn't changed. He's completely humble. I'm working on a special right now to kind of honor him, prior to the Heisman Trophy ceremony next week. And we're pretty confident he's going to go. But, just a part of that is he through NIL, name, image, and likeness, this is something that's really came on in college sports lately, and it allows a player to basically be paid for what he does on a football field, more or less, right? Or at least through name, image, and likeness. And a lot of guys benefit from that, individually. But Ashton is a guy that, yes, he has probably benefited himself, but he's also using himself and his success to help his teammates in the NIL world. And the example that I'll give you is that he has a deal with a sandwich shop in town, or it's a restaurant that has sandwiches. He's got his own sandwich there. And they give him, they pay him for that, but they also routinely give him gift cards and things like that. And Ashton will directly pass those on to his offensive linemen. So when they show up, on Tuesday after a Saturday game, Ashton has gift cards, in their lockers ready to go for them, that Ashton could just utilize those himself, right? Like he doesn't have to think about anybody else. But that's just like a microcosm. Like that's just like one small example of the character that Ashton Jeanty carries himself with on a daily basis. Phenomenal football player, phenomenal human being, great family. He is everything you would want, as a superstar to represent your school, your program, heck, your state for that matter.
Yeah. So I want to talk now about the college football rankings. You mentioned this. We've got about 3 minutes left with you. Why is this so important that they win this game? Because as you said, a playoff game is on the line, not just the Mountain West Championship.
Yes, you're exactly right. It's awesome too that the two best teams, not only in the Mountain West Conference, are meeting for the championship. It's the two premier group of 5 teams, right? And one group of 5 team is guaranteed a spot at the table. And with UNLV and Boise State being UNLV's, 2 in the group of 5, Boise State's 1 in the group of 5. Whoever wins this game, you really feel like is going to be the team that's going to go to the college football playoff. Boise State's in a better position than UNLV because they're ranked much higher. They're hosting the game. They've already beaten UNLV this year. But that being said, this game kind of determines that likely. And so on top of that, Boise State is also the fourth highest ranked conference champion at that moment. Now, conference champions haven't necessarily been handed out, but the way they project these things, if you are the 1 seed in your conference, then that's how they slot it in the college football playoff bracket. I know this is getting a little complicated, but Boise State is the fourth highest ranked conference champion at the moment. So they would get a first round bye.
Wow.
If somehow the Big 12 were to jump them, then Boise State would get knocked into the first round, meaning they would have to go out and play a true road game at Penn State or Ohio State or this really tough environment. If you get that bye, that next round quarterfinal matchup is on a neutral field. And so that's a huge swing as well. It would be, it would also allow Boise State 2 more weeks of rest to get healthy. A lot is riding on this game. Yeah. And if Boise State wins, I don't think you could have scripted a more picture-perfect season for the Broncos than what would actually pay out if they can pull off a win against UNLV tomorrow. And by the way, I think they are going to pull off a win tomorrow.
Okay, I have 1 minute left with you. Dream scenario for the Broncos. They win tomorrow night. Where do they go next?
They would wind up in the Fiesta Bowl against the winner of probably Arizona State and Penn State. I think I'd like my chances better against Arizona State, but either way, the Broncos couldn't ask for much more than that. So that would be the dream scenario. They're healthy on the offensive line. Mason Randolph's back at center. Roger Carrion's back at right guard. They're a different offensive line with those guys in action. They didn't have them against UNLV the first go around. I like Boise State's chances to win tomorrow and get to the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Eve.
You've been listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Gemma Gaudet.
We could all use a little help navigating the news these days. The Consider This podcast wants to give you a hand. 6 days a week, we'll help you make sense of the day's biggest news story and what it means for you in less than 15 minutes. Listen now to the Consider This podcast from NPR.